So hey, it's Sarah, and I'm about to go through Module 4, the Why Philosophy Matters and How to Approach It. So I was just going to go in order from 1 to 6, and the first one is give it 5 minutes. This one I think everyone kind of realizes that we need to give it 5 minutes. We need to sit down and think about things before we approach them with our own ideas. But I think we kind of tend to forget and get caught up in defending our own points of view and pushing back on these ideas that we don't necessarily agree with at first glance. So his big deal was that giving it 5 minutes is the concept of understanding versus being understood. Taking deliberate time to truly get a firm grasp on the author's intentions and listening to understand, not to reply. So taking time to listen may sound soft, but empathetically, to listen with no intention other than to understand. And if you do this, then you will be able to better process the information that is being given to you and reply eventually with the best, in the best way possible. Asking questions says you're listening and want to know more. Pushing back shows arrogance. So by asking questions, you're saying that I'm interested in what you have to say and I want to know more. Whereas just pushing back and saying I don't agree with what you're saying, it really shows your immaturity and that you're not willing to put forth the time that it takes to really think about ideas and give them time to give it time to explore. So this idea is to think instead of react, to mull over and explore these ideas, to really get a grasp on them before you go to react, which is what most people do, even without realizing. They start to attack an author or an idea without really understanding what it's all about. This concept has always been present in my life, but it's easy to forget when you're growing. So recently I've made a lot of changes in the way I view the world over a slow period of time, but it can be hard to remember that I still need to slow down and I still need to look at these points of view, even that I held just a few short months ago, and to not completely write them off, to let them sit, let them marinate. It's okay. It's not going to threaten my newfound beliefs and views. So, and I think it can, especially whenever you are growing and coming up with new ideas and new views, it can feel threatening to sit down and listen to something that you don't necessarily agree with. But I think it's still okay. It's even vital to actually sit down and explore these ideas, whether you agree with them or not. It's reminded me that taking 5 isn't all that common, and doing it myself can really set me apart. So like I said before, it's something that I think all humans, all of us as a society, we know that we need to do this, but it tends to get, pushed to the back burner and we don't actually do it. So actually taking time to listen to your peers and even those in a higher status of you, taking that time to really think about what they're saying and to understand it instead of just looking at it on the surface, I think will really set you apart and show that you really care about what you're hearing and what's being relayed to you. So that's really all I had on the Give It 5. So we'll move on to the second one, which was the work required to have an opinion. This one may seem a little backwards because we know that everyone has an opinion, so it may seem a little backwards. But it honestly makes a lot of sense that you would need to put forth some effort to hold an opinion. And I really like it, especially whenever you look at it in the political or religious sense, that people tend to have these opinions and hold them with such a passion and really not know anything about the other side, not know how to truly defend their opinion or their worldview. So it says you're not entitled to take a view unless and until you can argue better against the view than the smartest guy who holds the opposite view. You need to become a critic of your own beliefs and views, which I think is fabulous, and it's how I've gotten to the point where I am today. Not long ago, I went vegan. I've been vegan for almost 2 months, and looking back on how I viewed veganism before, it's really stunning to think that just stepping back and looking at veganism whenever I was on the opposite side of it and realizing that it makes a lot of sense. And so even just looking at another side and something that you think you would disagree with 100%, and then coming to realize that it's something that you totally agree with, and just by taking the time and spending the effort to really get to know your idea and the opposite idea, and not just laying idly and just spouting off your opinion without actually having any knowledge or wisdom. So personally, this has been my favorite topic to cover due to my recent dramatic shifts in my worldview and from almost all fronts. So again, just having these huge changes in opinions and realizing that it's very offensive isn't the right word, but it's really sad to see these people defending their opinions without knowing the other side, without taking time to really get to know their own ideas, let alone the opposite view. So I really have come to love this particular topic because of my personal experience with it. The author really urges us to take responsibility for our views and opinions, calling it a mental discipline. So by looking and scrutinizing your own idea, by becoming a critic of your own views, and also getting to know the best arguments for the opposing view, you really start to take responsibility for what you believe. And I think that's really great. So many times throughout history, people have just been, lumped into the category of opinions and beliefs that are culturally normative for them and that society. So, if you're a white person in America, you're going to be a Christian. And to just, play along with that instead of really scrutinizing your idea and saying, do I really believe this? Is it worth believing? And maybe it is, but to look at that and scrutinize it with passion and to really understand it. This concept is something I've become recently very passionate about after living the majority of my life, not even completely understanding my own views and seeing those around me try to defend their opinions, not even knowing the first thing about the opposite side. So basically what I just said, I had just written that down as a note, that, it's really sad to see these people defending their ideas, and this goes every direction in life. It's religion, politics, the equine world, which I'm very immersed in, just everything. People will hold on to these views and opinions religiously and not even know how to defend them properly. So I really think this was definitely my favorite topic to cover in this module. And the third one is you have no idea how wrong you are. This one was also really great. I had to share it on Facebook as soon as I saw it. It was beautiful. And I've been talking about it nonstop with some of my closest friends. It's just really eye-opening. So the premise for his idea was you have no idea how wrong you are. And because human beings, we have gotten it wrong infinitely more times than we've gotten it right. We are only just now slowly starting to become less wrong. We're still not right in a lot of areas, but we're becoming less wrong with research and evidence and just looking at the world around us very critically. So human beings got it wrong. No other species has messed up as frequently and about as broad an array of topics as we do, or with as consequential outcomes. Think how right these people thought they were, throughout each of these things, and still today about war, slavery, human rights, and health issues. We think we're right, and then we're so wrong, and it causes us to have these major negative outcomes. philosophy, science, medicine, mathematics, psychology, and economics. Those are all things that we have been slowly becoming less wrong about over, centuries. People have been wrong far more than they have been right, which makes sense. More ways to be wrong than right. Shouldn't be a surprise. So if you think about it statistically, we should be wrong more than we are right. It makes total sense. Asking the wrong questions gets us further away from where we want to be while thinking we're getting closer. This one really rung true to me. By asking the wrong questions and thinking that they are the right questions, we trick ourselves into thinking that we're getting closer to the truth, when in reality we're getting further and further away from it. And I think this is true for an array of topics, science and religion and politics and philosophy. So I really appreciated this idea and everything that this guy had to say. It was very eye-opening, and as I said, I've been talking about it nonstop with people around me, and just urging them to look at history and then look at their own views. And I get a lot of pushback from it. I was talking about it particularly just the other day with one individual who is very hard-headed, and we were talking about people who believed the earth was flat, and he was like, "Oh, well, that was centuries ago." And I was like, someday we're going to be centuries ago, and people are going to laugh at us the way we laugh at those who thought the earth was flat. And it's just really interesting to see people who are so against just stepping back and saying, I might be wrong. And I want to be one of those people who says, I might be wrong, but I want to try my hardest to be less wrong. And I want to try to be right. I know I probably won't get there, especially in every aspect of my life. I want to try and get there in most. We'll see. So this one was a really fun one. I really appreciated it, and I've been talking about it nonstop. And the fourth one is why philosophers make formidable entrepreneurs. This one was really great. It really kind of drove home the idea that philosophers are entrepreneurs are philosophers in action. Entrepreneurs are those who take these ideas and the way that a philosopher thinks and puts it into action in the real world and brings it into the physical form. Philosophers make intense entrepreneurs due to their nature of wanting to ask tough questions and solve the puzzle. They seek to provide structure, analyze evidence, and reduce risk. Attract the best talent with a compelling vision, win over investors with their confidence, which derives from their passion for debate. Philosophers are smart, tenacious thinkers. It makes all the sense in the world that entrepreneurs would be a philosopher in action. So this one was really fun to read and really exciting to think that we have people coming up who are entrepreneurs and they think deeply, and I really like that. They're not just, out to make a quick buck. I mean, I'm sure money is involved for many individuals, but to have this deeper way of thinking, to want to debate, to want to find the true answers, and to seek structure and think analytically about everything. I really appreciate that in a person, especially someone in business. And I love to see more of it. And this also reminds me of myself. I have always been a rather philosophical thinker. I love to debate ethics and politics and religion, and I'm also very entrepreneurial, and I really see those two coming together, even more so after reading this and really exploring it and mulling on it. And the fifth one is called Philosophers on Philosophy. It was actually pretty comical to me to listen to it. It was a Philosophy Bites podcast interview. And it was just asking all these philosophers, people who do this professionally, what their definition of philosophy is. And the answers varied infinitely. So pretty quickly into the Philosophy Soundbites podcast, we start to see a theme or lack thereof. When these philosophers are questioned about their views on philosophy, we receive a variant of answers ranging from its critical thinking to its sense-making, to questioning presumptions, to merely laughing at such a question. Philosophy is an unusual subject in that practitioners don't agree what it's about. And I think that's really actually very beautiful, because I don't think that philosophy is just about one thing, and I don't think the definition can be clear-cut or simple. Philosophy is, asking these deep questions about nature and the human mind and other animals and what life is really about. I mean, it is so varied, and I think just asking what it's about is philosophy in and of itself. So up until this point, I hadn't given much thought to the true definition of philosophy or their experts' interpretations of it. So after studying it and actually thinking about what I believe philosophy is, I think being philosophical has never been easy or clear-cut, so I don't see why the definition should be. I think philosophy is forcing yourself to question literally everything, even things that may never come to pass. So really, just it's questions. It's trying to find the answers to these questions and then questioning those answers and really trying to get to the root of what you're thinking about. It as some people say, it's thinking about thinking. It's really just using your mind to its deepest and most robust capacity, which I think is absolutely beautiful, and I wish more people did it. Everyone does it to an extent, but I wish more people actually thought about it when they did it and talked about it and actually developed discussions around it instead of just coming to a conclusion and holding it as an opinion. Instead of doing that, I wish people would discuss it with other people and keep the train of thought going instead of just stopping at what you believe is your opinion. And here we have the last one, which is Bryan Caplan on why hypothetical thinking matters. This one was really great. His deal was hypotheticals serve two different functions: devising practical contingency plans and achieving intellectual clarity in a complex world, which I think makes a lot of sense. A lot of people like to write off hypotheticals as a waste of time or, just don't really matter. They're inefficient. But I really liked what he pointed out on some of the questions, the hypotheticals that he had. Some are completely worthless and aren't going to contribute to either of the two functions. They aren't going to devise a practical contingency plan. So in that case, it would be something that will never occur. It is highly, highly unlikely that this would ever occur. Most likely won't. And then second, if it's not going to do that and it's not going to achieve intellectual clarity in a complex world. So if it doesn't open the door for more discussion, if it doesn't get to a deeper level, whether talking about political issues or philosophical issues, if it doesn't get to a deeper rooted question, then it's not worth asking. So a lot of people like to write those ones off, particularly whenever they're like, oh, that would never happen, when in actuality they just don't want to answer the question because it would reveal a deeper philosophical thing about themselves. And I think those questions are actually more valuable than the ones that would devise that practical contingency plan. I think getting to know someone on a deeper intellectual level is way more valuable. So hypotheticals provide a mentally isolated environment for thought experiments. So I think this is really important too, because a lot of people wouldn't normally answer a question that would achieve that intellectual clarity because it wouldn't be asked. It takes the person being questioned, it removes the responsibility almost. Like you can ask this question and they wouldn't directly have to do the thing that you asked. They can say what they would do, and it lets them answer it, I think, more honestly. So that one was really, really great. I would love to come up with some more hypotheticals to ask people around me and see the kind of answers I get. I wish people would ask me hypotheticals, and so I could get to know myself a little bit better, because I think sometimes you can be surprised by your own answer. And I think it's good to question yourself and see what you really believe, what you truly would do in certain circumstances. So that was all of the topics that we had covered in Module 4. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed my analysis of them, and I will see you later.